This incident happened to me last year on Halloween. My little brother and I were home alone since our parents had gone out to a Halloween party. They had tasked us with handing out candy to the trick-or-treaters. This bummed my brother and me out because we had made plans to go trick-or-treating with a few friends. Our parents told us that we were too old to still be trick-or-treating and that we could instead invite our friends over to the house to hang out. My friends declined my invitation because they still wanted to go trick-or-treating, so that left me home alone with my brother, handing out candy. A lot of people stopped by our house, and by 10, almost all the candy was gone. My brother and I decided to eat the rest. We were sitting on the couch, watching a scary movie and stuffing ourselves with candy when there was a knock at the door. I got off the couch, wondering who the hell could be knocking this late. I assumed it was just some late-night trick-or-treaters. Even if that were the case, I had already turned off the porch light and Halloween decorations, which should have been a dead giveaway that we were out of candy, or that we weren't home. So I assumed it was my parents. Being cautious, I looked through the peephole and saw a suspicious man standing on our front porch. He was wearing a black hoodie with the hood pulled up, which made it difficult to see his face. The only detail I could make out was that he had a beard and dry, cracked lips. There was no way this guy was a trick-or-treater. He wasn't wearing a costume and was far too old to be out alone. His hands were stuffed in the front pocket of his hoodie, and he looked very thin. Every red flag in my head went off. There was no way in hell I was opening that door. Still looking through the peephole, I watched as he knocked again. He seemed desperate for us to open the door and was shaking a bit. It wasn't cold outside, definitely not cold enough for someone to be trembling. He was giving me a bad vibe, and I wanted to get rid of him as soon as possible. "We're out of candy," I shouted. I watched as a smile spread across his face. It wasn't a friendly smile either. "Are you alone in there?" the man asked, his voice raspy and mocking. "Should I call the police?" my little brother whispered, and gripping his phone tightly. The man let out a low grumble and said, "Sounds like you're not alone in there." I kept watching him through the peephole. His hands were still buried in his pockets, and he was still trembling. I began to wonder if he was armed. I decided to take action and spoke to him in the most intimidating voice I could manage. "Get the fuck away from my house or I'll call the police," I shouted. His smile faded and he bared his teeth. They were piss yellow, and I immediately concluded he was probably some homeless crackhead. His face twisted in fury. Fortunately, he left without trying to break in, probably because he realized I wasn't messing around. I didn't stop watching through the peephole until I saw him completely off our property. My brother and I both sighed in relief and decided not to call the police. We were still paranoid, though, and stayed up watching TV until our parents got home. We didn't tell them about the man since he hadn't actually tried to harm us. But now, when I think back on it, I wish we had called the police, because maybe we could have prevented a murder. The next day, we found out that the elderly woman who lived a few houses down had been brutally murdered. Her neighbor found her lying on her front porch, covered in blood. She had been stabbed multiple times in the chest and neck. My brother and I immediately knew who had done it, and we told the police everything we knew. Unfortunately, they couldn't do much with the information since we hadn't seen many details of his face. They searched for him, but never caught him. I still blame myself for that poor old lady's death because I could have prevented it just by calling the police. The most disturbing part of all is that he didn't take anything from her house. The place was left untouched, even though the door was wide open. That means he didn't break in to steal, he broke in to kill. That was his only intention. This happened back in elementary school. I was around 7 or 8 years old. I haven't thought about it much in recent years, but reading through this sub made me remember it. At school, there was the annual Halloween party where brothers and sisters of my classmates were invited. We always had lots of fun, eating spooky snacks and playing games. I was wearing a vampire costume. I always dressed as a vampire for Halloween. And my best friend at the time, Sarah, had a strange costume that involved some fake plastic chains. They seemed real because they were quite heavy. At one point, Sarah told me she had to go to the bathroom, so we both headed there. I waited for her outside the entrance. A couple of other girls went in, but I didn't pay much attention. A few minutes went by, and I started getting annoyed because I didn't want to miss more of the party. Another 5 minutes passed, and I was pissed off. I turned around and went into the bathroom. I could hear the sound of her chains clinking, but I couldn't tell which stall it was coming from. I knocked on every door. No response. I crouched down to look through the gap between the door and the floor to see where the noise was coming from. That's when I found her. Strangely, she wasn't alone. I raised my voice and asked if she was okay and who the other girl was. No reply. I started trying to open the stall door. We couldn't lock the bathroom doors at school, so someone had to be holding it shut from the inside. Panic started to set in. I screamed and pushed as hard as I could, and after struggling with all the strength a 7-year-old could muster, I managed to open it slightly. From this point, my memories are a bit blurry, but I'll try my best to explain. I saw a girl inside, and I recognized her. She was the teenage sister of one of our classmates. I asked her what was going on, and she told me that Sarah was having some sort of problem, and that she was helping her. But I didn't hear Sarah say a word. I kicked the girl's leg and managed to push my way in. I was terrified and just wanted to help my friend. As I got inside, the older girl quickly turned and used her back to hold the door shut. I looked at Sarah. She was sitting on the toilet, her face bright red, with the fake chains wrapped tightly around her neck. She was choking. I screamed as loud as I could. The older girl slapped me across the face. I was sobbing, crying, completely frozen with fear. All I could do was keep screaming. Eventually, a teacher came running in. She pulled me and Sarah out of the stall, called our parents, and an ambulance. My parents took me home while Sarah was taken to the hospital. It turned out that Sarah's brother, our classmate, had been mad at her for something, and his sister decided to teach her a lesson. She was much older than us at the time. I still get chills thinking about that day. I never saw any police talk to my parents or the school, so I guess she got away with it. Sarah and I never talked about it again, and anytime I've tried to bring it up, she shuts down immediately. This happened to me the weekend of Halloween, and I personally don't like talking about it, but my friend told me I should share it to get it off my chest. My friend and I were invited to a house party for college students in one of the richer areas of town. The house was huge, with a large yard and a pool area. The party had a naughty theme, so my friend dressed as a sexy nurse, and I went as a belly dancer. Most of the party took place inside the house. There were about 70 people there, but it was spacious enough that it wasn't hard to get around. I'm not much of a drinker, but I had some juice that was available. Some friends pulled my friend and me over to take pictures, so I set my drink down. After what felt like an hour of taking pictures, I found my cup again and took another sip, not even thinking about the fact that I'd left it unattended for a while. That's when a man came up to me. He looked to be in his late 20s or early 30s. He said my boyfriend's name and told me that my boyfriend had been trying to call me. That's when I realized I didn't have my phone on me. I have a lot of respect for my boyfriend. We always stay in touch, and since he had to work that night, I promised I'd check in with him, but I'd just forgotten. The man said it was urgent and that I could use his phone to call my boyfriend in one of the rooms. Without thinking, I followed him. If my boyfriend really wanted to reach me, I figured something must be wrong. As soon as we entered the room, I suddenly felt dizzy, like I'd just run a mile. My body felt weak, my head started pounding, and I could barely stand. The man closed the door behind me, helped me sit on the bed, and handed me his phone. I tried to call, but my vision was blurring, and before I knew it, everything went black. When I woke up, I wasn't sure where I was or what had happened. My friend was rubbing a napkin on my stomach and yelling. It took a few moments for me to come back to reality, and that's when I realized I was in a bedroom. My friend was wiping something off me, and I suddenly had a panic attack, realizing that something terrible might have happened. She calmed me down and told me that nothing like that had happened. She explained that she couldn't find me anywhere and had assumed I went to the bathroom. But after a while, when I didn't come back, she started looking for me, eventually checking the bedrooms. That's when she found me lying on the bed with the guy doing something to my stomach. Apparently, he had been pouring alcohol into my belly button and drinking it off me, licking salt off my chest, and even kissing my lips, all while I was unconscious. My friend had no idea how long it had been going on. I immediately felt sick and even started gagging when she told me. Thankfully, my boyfriend got off work early after my friend called him to explain what happened. He picked me up while my friend tried to ask people at the party about the man, but no one seemed to know who he was or where he came from. I went to urgent care and got checked out. Luckily, there was nothing seriously wrong with me, and whatever drug he slipped into my drink didn't have any lasting effects beyond knocking me out. I wish the story ended there, but it didn't. Not long after, I started receiving texts from a random number. At first, the messages were just weird and random, but then he sent me a picture of my torso and said disgusting, creepy things. It became clear he was stalking me. He still texts me randomly to this day. I've thought about trying to bait him to catch him somehow, but I'm scared. I don't know how smart he is, or what he'd do if things didn't go as planned. It was my turn to take my kids trick-or-treating. The previous year, it was my wife's turn, and we trade back and forth every year. My son and daughter are 7 and 9. Usually, I stay on the street while my kids go up to the houses to collect candy. After about half an hour of walking around, we came to one of the more popular hotspots for candy collecting, a main street in the neighborhood with lots of really cool decorations and animatronics on people's lawns. I got a bit distracted and stopped watching my kids closely. At one point, they came back from a house accompanied by another girl about the same height as my daughter. She was wearing a weird homemade mask, something like a cardboard cutout. My daughter asked if the girl could trick or treat with us, so I said sure, and we carried on together as a group. I didn't know who this girl was, but I figured she was a friend from school. As we continued, I started to notice a large man trailing us. He was wearing some sort of angry cat mask. It was honestly kind of creepy. I thought maybe he was the father of the girl, so I tried to start some small talk with him. I said something like, "Nice weather, eh?" But he didn't respond. He just stood there staring at me while our kids went up to the next house. I tried again, asking, "Hey, is that your daughter?" He nodded, but still didn't say anything. I figured he just wasn't in the mood for chatting, so I stopped trying. We carried on for about another 15 minutes, until suddenly my kids came up to me and said they wanted to go home. This surprised me, since we hadn't been out for too long, and their bags were only about a third full. Still, I agreed, waved goodbye to the man in the cat mask and his daughter, and started on our way home. The weird thing was, when I glanced back, the man and his daughter were just standing there, staring at us. I checked one more time as we turned the corner, and they were still standing there, not having moved at all. At this point, I decided to ask my kids, "So who was that girl?" My daughter looked up at me with a confused expression. "She's your friend," she said. I asked her what she meant. Apparently, the girl with the cardboard mask had approached them and said she was a friend of mine. She told my daughter she was too shy to ask me if she could join us to trick or treat, so she wanted my daughter to ask for her instead. I laughed and said, "Why would you think she was my friend? I don't have any kid friends." What my daughter said next chilled me to the bone. According to her, when the girl with the cardboard mask first approached them, she wasn't wearing the mask, so they saw her face. As it turns out, she wasn't a girl at all, but an older woman, around my age, with visible wrinkles on her face. What's even more disturbing is that the old woman had started to steal treats from my daughter's bag when I wasn't looking. That's why my kids wanted to go home. The woman was creeping them out, and they just wanted to get away from her. I brought my kids home and told my wife what happened. We checked through all their candy, but didn't find anything suspicious. We didn't call the police or anything, since nothing really happened, but thinking back, I kind of regret that decision now. What the heck was that old woman doing, and who the hell was the man following us around? I don't think I'll ever know. I just think it's sick that there are people out there on Halloween hiding behind masks, pretending to be children.